Imagine you wake up one morning, check your bank account, and everything looks fine. Same balance, same number. Nothing changed. But something is different. Something you can't see on that screen. The money is there, but what it can do, that's quietly, invisibly, permanently less than it was yesterday. No one robbed you. No crash happened. No news alert came. The government didn't announce anything dramatic. Your salary didn't get cut. And yet, you are poorer today than you were a year ago. This is not a hypothetical. This is not a doomsday scenario from some financial fear-mongering channel. This is happening right now to you, to everyone you know. And the disturbing part is not the inflation itself. The disturbing part is how few people actually understand how it works, and how, once you see the real mechanism behind it, you realize the system was never really designed to protect your money in the first place.
Setup. Why this matters right now. Let's establish something quickly. Inflation is not new. It has existed for centuries. Economists study it, governments track it, central banks obsess over it. So why talk about it now? Because between 2020 and 2024, something happened that hadn't happened in over 40 years in most developed economies. Inflation didn't just tick up slightly. It surged. 7%, 8%, 9%. In some countries touching 20% and 30%. In the United States, cumulative inflation since 2020 crossed over 20%. That means something that cost you $100 in January 2020 cost you roughly $120 to $123 by 2024. Your salary might have gone up, maybe even kept pace, but your savings, that money sitting quietly in your account earning 0.5% annual interest, that got absolutely crushed. And here's the thing nobody tells you clearly. Most people understand inflation as prices going up. That's not wrong, but it's dangerously incomplete. Because when you only see inflation as things cost more, you treat it as an inconvenience, a problem to manage month to month, a grocery bill that stings a little more. But when you understand what inflation...
Step 1. What is money, actually? Before we can understand how inflation steals wealth, we need to agree on what money actually is. And I don't mean philosophically, I mean functionally. Money is stored time. Think about it. When you work, when you spend 8 hours of your finite, irreplaceable life doing something, you receive money in exchange. That money represents those 8 hours. You can then spend that stored time later on food, on shelter, on experiences. So when you save money, you're not just saving currency. You are saving time. You are saying, I am deferring this value. I'll use it later. Now here's where inflation enters and becomes genuinely disturbing. If inflation runs at 6% per year, and you have 100,000 rupees or dollars sitting in a savings account earning 3% annual interest, do you know what happens? You feel richer. Your number went from 100,000 to 103,000. But in real terms, in terms of what that money can actually do, what it can actually buy, you are worth less than when you started. You lost 3% of your stored time. You didn't spend it. You didn't invest it poorly. You didn't make a bad decision. You just sat still, and the ground moved underneath you.
The uncomfortable math. Let me give you numbers that I want you to sit with. The rule of 72. It's a simple formula. Divide 72 by your annual inflation rate, and you get roughly how many years it takes for inflation to have the purchasing power of your money. At 3% inflation, which is considered low and acceptable, your money's purchasing power halves in 24 years. At 6%, which is what many economies saw recently, it halves in 12 years. At 10%, common in several emerging economies, it halves in just over 7 years. Now layer this on top of something. The average person works for 35 to 40 years. They save throughout, they plan to retire, they put aside money across decades. If inflation averages even 4% across your working life, the money you saved in your 30s is worth approximately half of what it was by the time you retire. And the money you saved in your 20s, the money you were most proud of saving early, has lost nearly 75% of its purchasing power by the time you're 65. Not because markets crashed, not because of bad investments, just because time passed and inflation did what inflation does. This is why the traditional advice of just save money is frankly financially naive in the modern system. Saving is necessary, but saving alone in low-interest instruments while inflation runs above those returns is not safety. It is slow, silent, guaranteed loss.
Hype versus reality. What they tell you versus what's actually happening. Now, let's talk about the official narrative for a moment, because there's an interesting tension here. When inflation runs high, governments and central banks respond, publicly, visibly. They raise interest rates, they give speeches about price stability, they deploy serious-sounding language about demand-side pressures and supply chain normalization. And eventually, inflation does come down. The narrative becomes, we handled it. The system worked. But here's what often gets glossed over in that victory lap. The prices don't come back down. This is important and widely misunderstood. When inflation falls from 8% to 3%, it does not mean prices are returning to where they were. It means prices are still rising, just more slowly. Disinflation, falling inflation, is not deflation. Prices are still going up. The damage already done is permanent. That 20% cumulative inflation from 2020 to 2024, that stays. Your groceries don't get cheaper when the inflation rate drops. They stay at the new higher level. So the victory is real in one sense. The rate of damage has slowed, but the loss already incurred is locked in. And there is something almost surreal about watching this play out. Public officials announce success, economists note progress, markets rally, and the average person is...
The implications for you. Let me be concrete now, because this should translate into how you think about money. The traditional advice, work hard, earn, save, retire, was calibrated for a world where savings held their value reasonably well, where interest rates on safe instruments kept pace with inflation, where a disciplined person could simply accumulate wealth over time through diligence alone. That world, in many ways, no longer exists. Interest rates on basic savings accounts consistently trail inflation in most economies over most periods. This is not fear-mongering. It is math. What it means is that keeping up financially now requires active management of your purchasing power. It requires thinking not just about how much you have, but what your money is doing while it sits. It means understanding the difference between nominal returns, the number on your statement, and real returns, what those numbers actually buy. It means recognizing that inflation is not a problem to be solved once and forgotten, but a constant background force that is always working, always compounding, always operating quietly in the background of every financial decision you make. It means asking, what assets historically preserve purchasing power through inflationary periods? Real assets, productive assets, things that generate real value or track real value over time. This isn't investment advice, and there are no guaranteed safe harbors. Every asset class has risk. But understanding the terrain is the beginning of navigating it. Here's where I'm going to leave you, and I want you to sit with this. We have built an economic system that, by design, requires growth, requires expansion, requires money supply to increase over time. And within that system, a certain amount of inflation is not a bug, it is a feature. Central banks don't target zero inflation. They target around 2%. That number wasn't chosen randomly. An economy with zero inflation is considered dangerous, dangerously close to deflation, which brings its own catastrophic problems. So some inflation is deliberately the goal, which means your money losing value every year is not an accident. It is a policy choice. Now,
Reasonable people can debate whether this is the right policy choice. There are serious arguments on multiple sides. This is not simple. But here's the question I want you to walk away with. In a system where the slow erosion of stored wealth is a deliberate, ongoing fear, where your savings are designed to decay at a controlled rate, what does it even mean to be financially responsible? When the advice to save your money is mathematically guaranteed to make you poorer in real terms over time, is that advice